Chapter 19. The Frustrated Defector. The prospect of a quiet and untroubled future for Marina was dashed by the jangle of a telephone. Lee had left New Orleans on September 25th. He arrived by bus in Mexico City 2 days later. Now it was October 4th, and he was back again. The chanting chorus of a Greek tragedy foretells the events which will envelope the heroes of a play. In the assassination of President Kennedy, there were no prophets or seers who could warn the audience that a web of circumstances was evolving which would lead him to a rendezvous with death in Dallas. In retrospect, the unbelievable coincidences that took place just couldn't happen, and yet they did, with an inexorability that no playwright could expect an audience to believe. 100 small events in the next 50 days could have happened differently, any one of which would have averted the killing. A split-second difference in the timing could have changed everything, but events moved relentlessly to their tragic culmination. As the commission pieced together the events and scrutinized each scrap of evidence, every member had a feeling that somehow the story could be rewritten. Couldn't someone have shouted a warning? Couldn't someone have foreseen that this man was warped and twisted and that he was on the parade route aiming a high-powered rifle at the president? It was like living an experience backwards. Why had fate been so cruel as not to have unmasked this man sooner as the would-be killer of General Walker? How could such a coincidence happen that he would get a job in a building whose sixth-floor window would make a perfect vantage point for murder? Why weren't there other people on the floor at the moment who would have thwarted his plan? Why? At each turn in the investigation, commission members hoped they could find some new fact that would turn the clock back or at least make the sorrowful events meaningful. But there was no meaning beyond the will of the killer to pull a trigger. To be able to find evidence of a plot would have at least let people say, well, now I understand. It would take away some of the terrible sense of futility and bafflement, but after 10 months of hard labor, it was not to be. There was no way of explaining the crime except to spread the record out before the public and let it judge. Ruth Payne and Marina provided a large part of the information that led up to the moment of the shooting. Their testimony was checked in every conceivable way. Such coincidences simply could not happen, but they did. As historians start looking into an event that happened in the past, they'll see that this thing happened and that thing happened and all these other things over here happened to make this particular event occur. If this general had moved his army over here to the left instead of to the right, the outcome would have been very different. Why did you go to the grocery store today at 4 o'clock? Why didn't you go at 3:30? Why didn't you go at 4:30? It's the same principle. A bundle of little events, little tiny decisions led you to leave the house at 4 o'clock. But nobody's going to think about it. No one's going to write a book about it. No one's going to make a documentary about it because it's just ordinary, humdrum life of no real consequence. But I guarantee you this, if you left the house 2.5 minutes after 4 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock and you get into a serious accident on the way to the grocery store, you're going to start thinking back what led you to this particular place at this particular time to get into this accident. And you start looking back and you start thinking, oh, if I didn't have to look for my keys, I would have left the house a couple minutes earlier and I wouldn't have been in that place at that time to get in to this terrible accident. Son of a gun. We pay attention to it now because something of consequence happened. In the game of poker, what are the chances of being dealt a royal flush? They're exactly the same as any other 5 cards in the deck that you want to name. 2 of clubs, 3 of hearts, Jack of diamonds, Ace of spades, 8 of clubs, but we don't pay attention to a hand like that because it's of no value in the game of poker. It's ordinary. We pay attention to the royal flush because it's a winning hand in the game of poker. We pay attention to what happened on November 22nd, 1963, because it was a major historical event. But I submit to you, all of life is like that. All of life. But we only investigate the major historical events or the major personal events in our lives. We don't think too much about the ordinary, everyday, humdrum occurrences because they are everyday occurrences, but they are made up of the same exact things that major events in life are. Just like a deck of cards is made up of the same 52 cards, and every once in a while, after they're shuffled, every once in a great while, someone is going to be dealt a royal flush. And out there in life, when the things in life are shuffled, the people, the places they go, the little decisions they make, when they are shuffled every once in a while, it'll lead up to something like November 22nd, 1963. It's no mystery. It happens every day. This is life.